Hi everyone, so I'm back today with a video that I've been wanting to film for a long time now, which is my breastfeeding experience as a teen mom slash young mom. This is kind of a more casual video today. As you can see, I'm on my bed and it's like 9 o'clock at night and like rainy, so hopefully the lighting is okay. I also have like a pen that exploded on my shirt, so just don't mind that. Hopefully I can stay semi-focused in this video, and I might add in a few pictures and stuff like that. I want to talk about this topic because for one thing, it's slightly taboo. It's not really, but like slightly. And another thing, like breastfeeding is just so hard, and I don't think people expect that whenever they have children, have a baby, and they don't expect how hard it is, which leads them to believe, oh, there's like something wrong with them and they need to give up. And I just want to make this video for anybody out there who might be struggling with breastfeeding, or who wants to breastfeed their child if they're currently pregnant or just had a baby and they just need some like encouragement. I just want to share my story because it started off as kind of a failure, and I genuinely thought that I wasn't going to be able to breastfeed. So a little backstory: when I got pregnant, I was 18, and I was like, oh, when I have my baby, I'm breastfeeding my baby, and I'm breastfeeding my baby until he or she is 2, and nobody can tell me differently, and it's gonna be amazing, and nothing's gonna discourage me, and it's gonna be easy and beautiful and perfect, and I'm gonna love it. So like leading up to her birth, I realized, like, as I was getting more informed, I was like, breastfeeding seems to like not work out for a lot of people, but that won't be me because I'm breastfeeding her until she's 2 and nobody can change my mind. So anyways, I went into this whole situation with that mindset, and I saw other people breastfeeding successfully, and I'm like, yes, I can do this. Like, it's gonna be great. I took a breastfeeding class and I was like, I got all the information I need. Like, we are good. So I will go to when she was born. So your delivery with your baby can like affect your breastfeeding experience, especially in the beginning, a lot. So for a little backstory, I was induced at 39 weeks. I had a vaginal birth with tearing, and she didn't have any complications except she had like low temperature for like 10 minutes when she was born. She had to be in the warmer, but they put her directly on me when she was born and everything like that. So anyways, she was born, and they put her on my chest, and you know, I had kind of thought like I wanted to breastfeed immediately. You know, I heard of like the golden hour or whatever they call it, like try to breastfeed within an hour of the baby being born. I don't know if that was accomplished or not. I kind of felt like I started too late, but I don't know. I don't remember when she first breastfed, but because like nobody was really saying anything, like I thought they were gonna be like, okay, let's go to breastfeed. But people were coming in to visit, and then I'm like, okay, like can someone like help me? Because I thought that the baby would just come out and I would just be like, and she would just like suck, and I would just be like, great. But like, it's so awkward feeling. It's not like the baby just like opens their mouth and latches on. I wish it was that easy, but I'm just like, I don't know like what to do with this child that I just birthed. And so I'm like, can like a nurse come in and help me please, because I want to breastfeed and I don't know what to do. So my memory is very fuzzy of this, but I guess a nurse came and kind of tried to get me to latch, and I knew about like the different poses and what you're supposed to do, but it's kind of hard to catch your baby opening their mouth that wide, because like in the demonstration videos, it's just like when the baby opens their mouth like this, then you put the boob in their mouth, and it's like the baby doesn't really open their mouth that wide, so it's kind of hard to get like a deep latch. So she latched, but I remember she would like fall asleep a lot, and I'd be having to like try to wake her up and keep sucking. But like at the beginning, you don't really have much milk. It's just the colostrum, so it's just a few drops, which is fine because the baby's stomach when they're born is like that big, and they told us that in my breastfeeding class, so I was prepared for that and everything. And honestly, like, it was explained to me that they don't really need to eat that much in the first 24 hours. like they don't come out of the womb starving. They're okay. And so anyways, I was getting adjusted, and that first night at the hospital, you know, I would try to breastfeed, but it was really hard to get her latched, and I always needed help. And I felt so bad asking the nurse like every time to be like, can you please help me latch her? And they wanted me to try to do it every 2 hours, and I just dreaded it because I felt like it wasn't working or she wasn't getting any milk, whatever. So when I got home, she was nursing like every 30 minutes, and I was like so overwhelmed just from giving birth, and your hormones and everything is horrible. It was painful. You know, soon like the cracked and bleeding nipples happen, which I was prepared for, but it doesn't make it any less painful. And so then I was like, you know, I don't think she's hungry. I'm gonna give her a pacifier, which a lot of lactation consultants say, like, do not give a pacifier, do not give a bottle. But I was like, I want to give her a pacifier because I don't think she's hungry. So I gave her a pacifier, and that was fine for a little bit. And then that night, the first night I was home, I would try to breastfeed her, and then eventually during that night she just stopped latching. She wouldn't latch on at all. She was just screaming, and it was a really, really hard night emotionally and physically. And I was like, I ruined breastfeeding because I gave her a pacifier, and I have terrible motherly intuition. So that morning we went to go see the lactation consultant again, and that was the first time I used a pump there. So at the hospital, I went to see the lactation consultant at the hospital. So she gave me a pump to use, and I pumped, and then she helped me get the baby to latch, and she gave me the Scarlett wasn't having a lot of wet diapers, so they gave me the SNS supplemental nursing system. So it's basically like a bottle that attaches right here, and it has a little tube, and you like tape it down, and so then the baby latches onto your nipple, but they're also getting a little bit of formula through the tube so that they're learning how to latch, but they're still getting milk. Because I wanted to make sure she was having enough wet diapers and everything. So Scarlett kept losing weight for a couple of days, which is really common, but it just like devastated me. Every time we would go to a weight check, and she's like, she's 6'14", she's 6'10", she's 6'8". Like, it was just so hard for me that she just kept losing weight. And so at this point, I was nursing with a supplemental nursing system, which was really hard and complicated to get her on there. And then I would pump after every session at home. I would pump for like 20 minutes. So that was every 2 hours. So it was really, really hard and a lot to keep up with. And I felt like she still wasn't really getting any milk. And so anyways, okay. So she was born on Wednesday. Saturday is when my milk came in. So when my milk came in, it was a little bit encouraging because I stopped just getting the golden colostrum. When I would pump, I would get like an ounce or two of milk. And so then as I kept up the pumping and trying to nurse, but most of the time it was unsuccessful, and she would not stay latched, or she would scream, and it was extremely painful. And I would cry and she would cry. And anyways, oh gosh, I missed a big point. So the second night that we were home, I was like at my wit's end. I could not like survive, function, do anything. And we called Scarlett's doctor, who is also my doctor because she was an OB and a pediatrician. And we were like, she's not really having wet diapers. I'm having trouble with breastfeeding, blah, blah, blah. My mom explained the whole situation to her, and she was like, Lena needs to sleep. She can figure out breastfeeding. The next day, she needs to sleep. And so that night, my mom gave her a little bit of formula during the night and spent the night with her, and I slept for the first time in a really long time. I just slept. So she had formula when she was little. We supplemented a little bit. It was not very much, maybe just like a bottle a day. It's like an ounce or so. So anyways, that was for like the first week. And so when my milk came in and I started pumping, we would give her bottles, but then since my milk came in, we could give her bottles of breast milk. So I would try to nurse, but we would end up giving her bottles a lot of the time because she just wouldn't latch. And so then I'm thinking, like, the more I give her bottles, the more I'm just gonna like fail at breastfeeding because she's taking a bottle, and that's easier than breast. And pacifiers and bottles are making me fail, and I ruined this entire thing. And it was just hard because every time I would like see people who had babies around the same time as me successfully breastfeed, like, it was such a touchy subject for me. I would just see them and like cry, and I would watch videos of being like, you know, nursing just came naturally to me, and I would just like cry and feel like a failure. And it was just like painful, especially when my milk came in. It was so painful, and I just felt like the ultimate failure of a mother because I said I was going to breastfeed and I can't. And it's just not working. She would cry, not get enough, not gain weight, not have wet diapers. It was so hard. And we tried everything. My supply was good and I could pump. And we tried getting her adjusted by a chiropractor. We tried craniosacral therapy for her to adjust her latch. She didn't have a tongue tie or lip tie. They said that she might have some kind of ties in her like cheeks or something, but the procedure was like complicated to get it fixed. And we saw the multiple lactation consultants just trying everything, and it was not working. So I was like, you know what, I'm done with nursing. This is so stressful because I would try to nurse her every time she was hungry, and if she did latch, it would be about after like 15 minutes of crying, and then she wouldn't stay latch. And when she did latch, it was incredibly painful, where I would be like curling my toes and like tearing up because it was just stabbing pain. And at one point I was like, oh, maybe she has thrush, like, and if we get her thrush treated, like, everything will be solved. Took her to the doctor, and I'm just thinking, this is definitely it. And the doctor's like, she doesn't have thrush. And then I'm like, thrush, and I'm just like, I'm so stupid. Like, where are my motherly instincts? I thought this was going to be the answer, and it's not. So I'm like, I'm not nursing anymore. I'm pumping, and that's it. I'm just going to stick with pumping, and I'm not going to try to nurse her anymore. So don't even try, because I'm just going to pump. And so I pumped every 2 to 3 hours, and it was so hard just to clean your pump parts, being attached to a pump all day. It's just hard. And the hormones that go on with your milk letting down were just really bad for me in the beginning. I still have a really intense reaction to my milk letting down, but in the beginning it was even worse. So pumping was horrible, and then I'd be worried, am I making enough, blah blah blah, which I was making tons and freezing it and everything, but it was just stressful, and I felt like a failure because people are like, are you breastfeeding? And I'm like, well, I guess, but not really. And you know, people say all the benefits of having your baby at the breast instead of taking a bottle, and I'm just like, is my breast milk even nutritious if I'm pumping it and not giving it to her directly? So there's just so many doubts and questions. And so after a couple of weeks of exclusively pumping, I was like, I'm done. I'm switching my baby to formula, and I can't do this anymore. Until I remembered these things that the lactation consultant told me not to use. No shade at the lactation consultant, but it's just like a big thing to not use anything that can pacify your baby besides your bare breast. Nipple shields are a thing that exists. So it's basically, I'll insert a picture if I can find one. They're these silicone things, and they go over your nipple, and they stick out more like a bottle so your baby can find it, and then, you know, your nipple pulls through it and sucks out the milk through these little holes. So I was like, well, let me just try this, because, you know, she takes a bottle just fine, but she can't latch onto my breast. So I put the nipple shield on, and she finds it because it's like a bottle, and my nipple pulls through it, and she could get milk, and she was at the breast. And I was like, I'm finally breastfeeding my baby. Like, I know there's this little barrier between us, but I'm breastfeeding my baby. And it was an amazing feeling to like hear her gulping milk. It was just so incredible. And it was a consistent thing where she could consistently latch on without crying. And it was just gave me such freedom from the pump and not being attached to it. And it was just amazing to just, because I was pumping, like, I felt like every 2 seconds I said, I need to pump. Oh, I need a pump. And now it's like I could feed her and I didn't have to pump, and it was incredible. So then I would just pump about twice a day. And so that went on for a while, and eventually I grew weary of using the nipple shields because they are kind of annoying after a while. To every time you have to breastfeed the baby, oh, let me get these silicone things out, and they get kind of gross, and I'm like, ugh. Plus it made it harder to breastfeed in public. So one time we were on vacation actually, and I was like in the downstairs of the house, and my mom was upstairs, and Scarlett was screaming and crying because she was hungry, and my nipple shields were upstairs, and I was like, Mom, can you bring my nipple shields down? And she was like, yeah. So I was waiting for my mom to get there, and Scarlett's crying, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna see if she'll latch on the boob. And she did, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to freeze because she's latched onto my actual boob, and I need to hang on to this moment forever. And I was like in shock that she latched, because she was about 2 months old at that point. And so it had been 2 months of bottles and nipple shields and pacifiers, and she latched. And I was like amazed. And then she kept doing it a few times, and then she wouldn't want to latch, and I'd use the nipple shield, and then she'd go back to latching. So after that time, there was probably like less than 5 times she used the nipple shield after that, and she latched, and it was magic. And so then I just started pumping about like once a day, unless I'm away from her for a long time, then I'll pump. But usually I pump once at night to have milk for when Scarlett's not with me. If she's with my mom or something, then she has breast milk to drink. But Scarlett has had formula a handful of times in the last 7 months. She's had it if we're like traveling or we don't have breast milk on hand, which it's probably been like 3 times total, which I'm proud of. And it's true that like fed is best, and however you choose to feed your baby is amazing. And I think that your mental health should be a priority over formula versus breast milk, because if that latching thing hadn't worked, if the nipple shield hadn't worked, I would have switched to formula, and that would have been fine too. But this is what I wanted so bad, and not everybody wants it so bad, which is fine. But it was just something that was a deep desire for me to have that bond. And right now, breastfeeding is still hard in that it's just hard to be like planning your day around like having to be attached to your baby at certain times when they're hungry. Plus I just have a lot of like sensory issues, and sometimes I don't like to be touched, but you know, I gotta feed the baby if I gotta feed the baby. So yeah, but it's just hard mostly like with going out in public, and I'm like, okay, do we have like milk, or am I gonna feed her in public? Which I don't have an issue with feeding in public, and I do it. And I do it without a cover because yeah, before I had a baby, I was just like, oh, well, if I go in public, I'll just use one of those nifty nursing covers, which are not that nifty because babies don't really like to have a blanket over their head when they eat, and it's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. So I do nurse depending on where I am. Sometimes I feel more uncomfortable, and sometimes I'm just like, whatever. It's just hard now at this age because she's like nursing, and then she like gets distracted and looks at somebody, and I'm just like, okay, my nip's just like out here, but I guess that's fine. So I kind of just have to try to like cover up with my shirt, but you know, the baby's got to eat, and that's what's more important than people being uncomfortable about it. So that is my story, and I hope I didn't talk too fast. I'm planning to continue breastfeeding at least until she's a year, but I would like to make it to 2 years. But I'm not being so strict on myself anymore, being like, you have to make it to 2 years. It's just like, whatever happens, happens, but I would like to make it to 1 year if possible. I have weeks where I want to give up and go to formula, and then I have weeks where I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever. I'm going to breastfeed my daughter until she goes to kindergarten. So, you know, It's been a journey, and I just wanted to talk about it and maybe encourage moms that may have had similar issues as me with latching or anything like that, because that was my main issue, was latch. And you know, there's all the quintessential like tips on how to get a good latch, a good deep latch, but you know, sometimes you do all of those things and it just doesn't work, which was how it was for me, and how I thought that I had ruined my chance at breastfeeding by giving my baby a pacifier and a bottle and using nipple shields. I thought that my chance was just out the window, and it wasn't. So like, if it's taking a long time for you to get the hang of breastfeeding and it's something you really want to do, don't give up, because just because the baby's not latching at 1 month old doesn't mean that they're not going to latch at all. Especially as the baby gets more control and the sucking is less of a reflex and more of a voluntary thing. The babies learn. As they get bigger, it's easier to latch and not so painful. I still have issues with a really strong reaction when my milk lets down. I get extremely tired, like a wave of exhaustion, and I can't hear any loud sounds or have anybody touch me. Every time. I don't really know what that is, but it's fine. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be. So that's my story. If anybody has any questions, please let me know down below in the comments. I would love to answer them for you. Or if anybody else wants to share their story about breastfeeding, I would love to hear it. And I know I've said this like in a bunch of my videos, but I'm planning to film a birth story soon. I keep filming it and then it gets messed up by something. Like last time I filmed it, it took like an hour because I had a terrible cough. And then I decided I didn't want to edit it because I literally coughed in between like every word. So anyways, if there's any other videos you want to see besides the birth story, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see y'all in my next video. Bye.